Happy 2 million downloads, everyone. Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with a servant spotlight for FGO's OG yandere waifu, Brynhild. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 5-star servants. So let's get right into her stats. Bryn has a max HP of 14,825, which is the same as Skahawk's and toward the low end of the 5-star Lancers, but overall very high among 5-star servants. In fact, she's among the top 10 servants in the game when ranked by HP. Her max attack of 11,432 is also quite strong. It places her second only to Karna among the highest attacking Lancers, and when you factor in that 1.05 Lancer modifier, her attack becomes 12,003, which is also high among 5 stars in general. So overall, some very good stats. Now on to her skills. Her first skill is Mana Burst Flame rank B, which increases Buster card effectiveness for 1 turn between 15 to 25%, and increases Noble Phantasm strength for 1 turn between 8 to 15%, both depending on level. Her second skill is Primordial Rune, which decreases the critical hit rate of an enemy between 30 to 50% for 3 turns, and decreases their Noble Phantasm strength for 1 turn between 15 to 30%, both depending on level. And finally, her last skill is Hero's Sidekick rank C, which increases crit star gather rate of an ally for 3 turns between 300 to 600%, and restores their HP between 1,000 to 3,000, both depending on level. For her passives, she has Magic Resistance rank B, which increases debuff resist by 17.5%, Riding rank A, which increases her quick card effectiveness by 10%, and Divinity rank E, which gives her an additional 100 damage bonus. As for her deck and Noble Phantasm, she has a light Buster deck with Quick Arts Buster, and a Buster Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Brynhild Romantia, which deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 600 to 1000% damage modifier. It deals additional bonus damage to beloved enemies between 150 to 200%, depending on overcharge. And it increases the crit star drop rate of all allies for 3 turns by 30%. This can be strengthened through an interlude, which will increase the damage modifier to between 800 to 1200, depending on level, and also increases the crit star drop rate of all allies from 30 to 50%. Taking a closer look at her deck, we can see her quick card hits 3 times, her arts card hits twice, her buster hits once, her extra attack hits 5 times. She has a Noble Phantasm gain rate of 1.07% and a star rate of 12.2%. What that means is she has really good Noble Phantasm gain just due to that high Noble Phantasm gain rate, and slightly above average star generation thanks to having 2 quick cards and 3 hits on each one. And for reference, her Noble Phantasm gain is actually higher than most other Lancers, including Skahawk and Liz, and her star generating is slightly better than Karna's without taking his star generating skill into effect. I touched on Bryn a bit during the Karna spotlight, and for good reason. Both her and Karna are somewhat similar. Both are Buster Lancers with a crit focus and fairly good crit star generating, and they even share a skill with Mana Burst. However, while Karna has a really good skill set, Bryn's is more of a mixed bag. Her Mana Burst is rank B, which makes it slightly weaker than Arjuna's and Karna's, but a strong skill nonetheless given that she has a strong single target Noble Phantasm while they have AoE attacks. Primordial Rune, on the other hand, is extraordinarily unimpressive. There's just really no practical application for this skill. It doesn't fit her playstyle at all, and enemy crit and Noble Phantasm strength down are both really bad debuffs, making this skill pretty useless overall. Thankfully, her last skill, Hero's Sidekick, is by far her best. Bryn is the only servant in the game with a targetable skill that increases crit star gather rate, and that's tremendously valuable. Many crit servants lack a crit star gathering skill, for example Karna, Gil, and Emiya, and instead they have to rely on their own star weight or a craft essence, and this skill single-handedly fixed that huge disadvantage that they have. And it even has a strong heal attached to it. The best thing though is that it has a very short 5-turn cooldown at max rank, and the buff lasts for 3 turns, meaning you can have this active on an ally for most of the fight. I highly recommend maxing Hero's Sidekick first since it gives her such incredible utility as a crit support, then level Mana Burst and then Primordial Rune, If you don't care about using her in a crit team, then go with Mana Burst first and then Hero Sidekick second. But Bryn's strength as a crit support doesn't end there. Her Noble Phantasm also functions as a good means of generating crit stars. A 30% team-wide buff to crit star drop rate for 3 turns is pretty good, but post-interlude it becomes pretty broken at 50%. Remember that this is on top of the tremendously powerful single target Noble Phantasm that has a ridiculous damage modifier and a strong bonus against beloved enemies. This is one of the better Noble Phantasms in the game, and it hits amazingly hard against beloved enemies, which includes a big chunk of male servants, plus Ushi for some reason. And Bryn's major strengths lie in her strong Noble Phantasm and crit team support, but her major weakness comes from her skill set. Hero Sidekick aside, Primordial Rune is just so useless it might as well not even be there. And her Mana Burst, while good, isn't as good as most self-buffing skills that Lancers have. In addition, the Lancer class is filled with boss killers, and Anti-Divine and Anti-Male are far more useful damage modifiers than Anti-Beloved. Meaning for all her Noble Phantasm strength, she won't hit as hard as Skahak or Tamamo Lancer in most cases. And she also isn't very good on her own as a crit Lancer, so outside of being a support for another crit servant, she can be fairly mediocre despite her stats. And she also isn't the best option for all crit servants, as some like Okita and Mysterious Heroine X value crit damage buffs or quick buffs more than they value crit star gather rate. So her use isn't unlimited here. When it comes to deciding on team comp, Bryn is pretty similar to Lancer Liz, in that you primarily want to utilize her as a support Lancer. She works best when supporting crit servants. Gil, Emiya, and Karna are ideal teammates for her, since they all lack healing and any means of reliably gathering crit stars, so Hero Sidekick cures them of all their ails. In addition, all 3 of those servants can be strong crit star generators on their own, meaning they benefit greatly from Bryn's Noble Phantasm. Speaking of which, she can also work pretty well alongside other crit star generators like Mysterious Heroine X, Carmilla, Drake, Okita, Atlanta, and Cursed Arm Hassan to really bolster their crit star generating potential even further. And finally, if you do want Bryn to be your offensive Lancer, you can pair her with Hans, David, Shakespeare, or Waver, and I would advise against making her into a crit Lancer herself, as she isn't optimal for that kind of build. She lacks a crit damage buff, but it is possible, and if you do want to go down that route, then Waver or Hans is a must. Bryn's Bondcraft Essence is Imperishable Flame, which buffs all allies' Buster Card effectiveness and Noble Phantasm gain by 10%. This is a decent Bondcraft Essence that fits her supportive role pretty well, and it works especially well if she's paired with Gil or Karna. But I also highly recommend Be Elegant or 2030 or After Party Order if you're using her as a crit support servant, since all of those will boost your crit star drop rate in one form or another, and After Party Order will even give you a pretty good attack buff on top of it. If you're using her more offensively, you're going to want to use Halloween Princess, Limited Zero, or Black Grail, because you're going to want to maximize her Noble Phantasm damage, and she can offset the burn on Black Grail with her heal. Finally, if you do go the crit Bryn route, then Victor of the Moon, Gudao, and Moonlight Fest are must-haves. You should use Moonlight Fest only if you don't have another crit star generator on your team. Overall, I think Bryn is a very competent servant and above average. Her stats are great, she packs a one-of-a-kind skill that complements certain servants very nicely, and she has a very strong Noble Phantasm with good utility. She also has some major problems with her useless second skill, very stiff competition from servants in her own class, and while her use as a crit support is ideal for some servants, it's a very select group and her appeal isn't universal. Her good points outweigh the bad though, so she gets a very respectable B rank from me. If you need a reliable, strong, multi-purpose Lancer, she won't let you down, and she's probably the most balanced of the 5-star Lancers. But her niche is still small, and she doesn't really excel at much else in the same way that Skahak and Karna do. And those are my thoughts on Brynhild, but for all you Pokemon masters out there that want to catch all the servants and fill up your servant decks, I should mention that she is a very rare servant. If you don't roll her now, she won't be available for another year and a half. So do keep that in mind. and let me know if you do plan on rolling for her, as well as your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. And if you haven't already, please join the party over at our Discord and follow us on Twitter. With all that said, I'll see you all in the next Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.